Welcome back, everybody. It's Pacman from Drunk Monkey Garage. We are back in the kitchen today, but we are not brewing beer. We are getting ready to mix up the crystal solution that I'm going to use in my next paint job. So I'll walk you guys through the process and give you the ratios that I use for my crystal mixture. There's a lot of ways to do that. People use different ratios, and it mostly depends on your temperature, your ambient temperature, and your humidity level. There's a lot of variables in the crystal effects paint job. It seems to work best when it's warm and very humid. So I'm picking this rainy day to do it because I think that'll give us the best results. With that being said, let's get to it. First thing I use is a urea product from Alpha Chemicals. I get this off of Amazon. It's about $10 for a pound. It is a little pricey, but it's worth it once you see the effects of the paint job. So this is a new bag. I'm gonna open that up. The ideal mixture is a 1-to-1 ratio between the urea and a purified water. You want either a purified water or like a spring water. Tap water seems to have some chemicals that can neutralize the urea and not give you as good of an effect. So I'm going to start out by heating up some water, because once you add the urea, it has a cooling effect on the water. And once the water gets down to a certain temperature, it won't dissolve any more of the urea. I usually only add about half of the urea at first, and then add more warm water to allow the urea to dissolve fully. So we'll get to that. I'll bring you over here and show you the scale, and I measure everything when I'm doing this just to make sure I get consistent results. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put both of these on here. These are my containers that I'm gonna use, one for the water and one for the urea. Want to make sure they are the same, so when I tear it out, getting the right amount of water and urea in there. So we're going to start out with the water. I'm going to do about 6 ounces, which is more than enough. So let's make it an even 170 milliliters. There we go. So we have 170 milliliters of water here. What we want to do is get the same amount of urea. So it doesn't matter teaspoons or whatever. What you want is to make sure you get the same milliliters. So we want to go to 170. Right there. got any chunks in there, you just want to break those up because they're harder to dissolve when they're chunked up. So you just break those up. Now, I'm going by the markings on the side of the mixing cup. Your urea is a solid pelletized thing, so it's going to show a little more than 6 ounces, whereas the water shows exactly 6 ounces. So what I'm going to do now, just going to add my water into a pan, and we're going to turn that on to medium heat. Going to get out a thermometer, and we want to heat this water to 120, 130 degrees. We don't want it boiling hot, because that will kill all the urea. We just want it warm enough to be able to dissolve it. So here we are at 120 degrees. That's just about perfect. So we want to put about half of our water in here, which would be 85 milliliters. And then we want to add about half of our urea. There we go. So now we just want to mix this until it is fully dissolved. We're going to add a little more water, nice and warm. And we add the rest of our urea slowly. So in the end, we should end up with 340 milliliters. And we want to make sure we mix this until it's nice and dissolved. Sometimes if you need to, if you're not getting fully dissolved urea, you can stick this in the microwave for a few seconds and warm it back up. Because if you feel it, it's almost like making ice cream when you put rock salt in the ice. It makes it colder. It's kind of weird. It's a chemical reaction. Oh, it's sciencey stuff. So we're almost fully dissolved. I am going to stick this in the microwave for a few, maybe 30 seconds. Just to warm the water back up and try to get that last little bit dissolved. Okay, that warmed it back up to the touch. It's warm but not scalding hot. Now we can mix that up a little more. Hopefully get the rest of that urea dissolved. From what I've learned, a 1-to-1 ratio is about all the water can absorb of the urea. After that, you're just going to have urea that doesn't dissolve and it settles back down to the bottom. So 1-to-1 ratio is the full absorption rate of the water. And like I said, the urea tends to cool it down, and you got to warm it up to get it to absorb all of the urea. Looks like we're about there. So at this point, put the scale away. It looks dirty and murky. That's because of some of the impurities that are in this. It's got, they mine this stuff from the earth, so there is earth stuff in there, dirt. What we can do is strain this stuff through a coffee filter. Take out some of the impurities. Gonna get our coffee filter down in here. And just pour this right through it. It's gonna take a little bit, so I'll get back to you when it's done. Okay, so it's all strained. This batch seems to be a little more cloudy than what I usually get a pretty clear urea mixture, but this has got some color to it, and well, I don't think that'll matter. Our last step is a 1% wetting agent. I use Finish Jet Dry Rinse Aid. It seems to work pretty good. So that for this amount is, you can measure it if you want to, but I usually just add a drop or two. That's there we go. That's about enough. Then we're going to mix that in gently. We don't want to bubble it up. And that is going to do it for the kitchen portion of this. All our mixing is done. This is our mixture that we're going to use. As long as we keep it in a sealed container, I usually use an empty Gatorade bottle. I have one of those out in the garage, so I'll probably transfer it to that. But as long as you leave it in a sealed container where air can't get to it and the liquid can't evaporate, then it usually lasts quite a while. I've had some mixtures last a month or two. They may form a few crystals at the bottom of the container, but it usually doesn't affect the effectiveness of the mixture. So with that, we're gonna head out to the garage and I'll show you how I apply this. All right, we're back in the garage. As you can see, it's almost 71 degrees and 64% humidity. I would prefer it to be around 70% humidity, but this will work. All I'm gonna do is put down some plastic. Just to catch the overflow. Be careful doing this around any kind of metal that's not protected with a primer or something, because if you let that stay on metal, for any period of time, it is like a salt and it will rust it. I learned that because I have a folding table that has metal legs, and they are now nice and rusty. So I guess we could do these first. I'm gonna put some gloves on. So now all I'm gonna use is, I've got some old microfiber cloths that I've run through the wash. So they are clean, they're just used. But that's basically all I use. I use that, soak it real good. And then I just wipe it over the surface. Try to get a nice even coat all over the surface. Now these are the test panels that we prepped with metal flake and the base color and clear. And all I did was took a Scotch-Brite pad and scuffed down the clear so that it was smooth. Put that in there and we can leave that. And I will put you guys on time lapse and let you watch the process. See some of the crystals forming right up in here. It's going to be hard to see it on the metal flake, but once we spray it with the base black, it'll really pop. So I actually kind of messed up with these. I forgot to mask off the blue. But as you can see, there are some pretty good crystals on there. But this gives me a good opportunity to show you guys. If you mess this up, it's no big deal. All you gotta do is spray some water on it. Wipe it off, and all that urea mixture will come right off. And this is just plain tap water. Just wipe all that crystal off. And then what I'll do is I'll hit these with some glass cleaner, and then we'll tape off the designs, and then we'll reapply our crystal mixture. Just some regular old glass cleaner. Make sure we've got a clean surface so the tape will stick. Then what we'll do is apply our crystal mixture to our other test panel that's already masked off. And while that's drying, I will tape up the other two. All right, just like on the other parts, we'll take our rag soaked with the urea solution. Then you're just gonna wipe it on as evenly as possible. And that's it. Now we wait for it to dry. So the crystals took about a half hour to materialize and form. What we are waiting for now is all of the little wet spots to evaporate. So I'm going to give this another 20 minutes to dry. And in the meantime, I'm going to coat the other two speed shapes, and we will get the booth ready to lay down the base coat black over this. I will say curved surfaces are a little more difficult to do. You kind of almost have to pour it over and let it run down the curves. But with a little bit of patience and some practice, you can get it done. So we're gonna let these dry. I'll let the other one dry for a little bit. We're gonna set the paint booth up and we'll be back. So, all I'm doing is putting a light mist coat on this, so I'm not gonna suit up, but I am gonna wear a mask because this stuff is not good for your lungs. So, I'll show you how I do my mist coat. It's very light mist coat until you get coverage. You wanna do really light coats and let it dry. How about I just show you? So I've got my fluid turned out about a half a turn. I've got my pressure turned up to about 32 PSI at the gun. We're just trying to get a light mist coat on this because we're gonna end up sanding most of it off with a Scotch-Brite pad. So I'll get the rest of these coats down and then I'll show you that process. So now we're at the point where we're going to sand off the crystal and some of the black to leave the pattern. What I've got here is just some regular tap water. I'm gonna get it a little bit wet. Get our gray Scotch-Brite. This is a well-used piece of Scotch-Brite, so it's not too aggressive. We're just gonna lightly go over our crystal and dissolve that. And this is where your pattern's going to show up. What you want to do is go over it enough to get all the little crystals off, but not so much that you take the black off of the spaces in between. What I used for the black was just a base coat black. It doesn't matter. I had this left over from the Fat Bob project. So this is actually a vivid black from Harley Davidson, but you can use any black base coat. And what I did was I over reduced it by about 15%. Make it a little bit thinner, easier to come out of the gun, and that way I could turn my nozzle down to only about 3/4 of a turn out. Half to 3/4 of a turn out. That way you're spraying very minimal material out of the gun, and then you want to turn your air pressure up so it's drying the paint actually before it's really getting onto the part. And the reducer I used was a fast reducer that allowed it to dry quicker. Because if you let this stuff dry too long, then you'll have trouble getting the urea crystal patterns to come off. So I can tell already the silver base that we did is definitely more prominent than the black base we did. So we just take a clean rag, wipe that off. You want to make sure you get all the little, where the urea dried and crystallized, you want to make sure you get all that off. Otherwise that could cause problems down the road. So, there it is. That's the crystal pattern. Pretty simple process. You do have to pay attention to your ratios and the way you're spraying your overcoat to make the pattern. You don't want to saturate this or you'll wipe the crystals out, and you don't want to let it dry too long, then it'll be too hard to get the black off of where the crystal is without taking the black off of the base. So I'm going to get these speed shapes cleaned off and everything unmasked, and we'll take a look at it after that. I know it seems like kind of a pain in the butt to unmask everything after you get to this step, because we're going to be covering this with a candy anyway. But it's important to do that so you can repair any of this stuff and tape this off before you apply the candy. Because the candy is very delicate and you want that to be the last thing you do before you put a coat of clear on it. So, and sometimes when you're doing the crystal, if you don't have a good tape edge, that crystal can bleed underneath and you'll get some crystal on here that you'll have to clean off. So I'm gonna repair all this stuff, tape this off, and get all this stuff fixed. And then probably put a lockdown coat of clear on it, and then we'll do the candy. I'm really pleased with the panel, the 12 by 12 panel. The first crystal speed shape that I did, or the first metal flake speed shape I did, didn't turn out the best. I think there was just too much black in there, and trying to scrape off the crystal pattern over the black, it just took off too much. The one I did over the silver though did turn out better. Still hit it a little too hard in some areas, and it came out really light. But the panel itself, this side really turned out well. This side turned out okay, but I like this one a lot better. I think that's gonna about do it for this video. Like I said, we're gonna be doing some repairs on this panel. It's supposed to rain for the next few days, so be a good opportunity to be out here in the shop and get that fixed so we can show you guys how to put down the candy over the crystal. And I'm as curious to see how it's gonna look as you guys are. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and hit that bell icon for notifications of future videos. We should have another video coming out shortly showing the candy on this. So until then, cheers.